to order. Just remind everybody of the decorum. It's listed on the agenda. And at this point, Supervisor Anderson, would you lead us in the invocation of pledge?
Dear Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to gather together, discuss the business of the county. And Lord, we just ask that you bless our efforts here tonight, bless each and everything that we do, and just help us as we process these challenges. For it's in your name we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time, it's to approve the agenda, consent agenda. Need entertain a motion to change the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we move items 4 and 5 out of the consent agenda into new business.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Having none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, at this time, we have a public hearing to receive public comment, to receive public input to the proposed Grayson County Broadband Fund Budget Amendment for fiscal year 23. Should be a resolution. Okay, as a reminder, it's 5 minutes for public hearing. 3 minutes, okay. Jason Badoon. What do you do?
Make a motion, go.
Pardon the procedure. I would entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. I'm also aye. We're in public hearing. Jason Badoon, please state your name and your address.
Yeah, my name is Jason Badoon, 110 Mountain View Avenue, Gillette, Virginia. I notice here you've got like almost half of this project towards 911 stabilization. What does that have to do with broadband? I see broadband budget and everything that was consigned in there, but I don't see where 911 stabilization has anything to do with broadband. I think you're you're combining some projects together. I don't know if y'all are able, you never are do answer my questions when we're doing these things, so I don't expect y'all to change now. I mean, what do we get for this? I mean, I see where the county spent $200,000 of our money to match the thing, and then, but we got $2 million spent out. What have we got? 500, 50 connections from Gigabeam. I mean, this is ridiculous, and it's been time and time again, and now we're going on and building 3 towers for U.S. Cellular so that they can lease to other people. I mean, it doesn't make any sense of what's going on in my county. I mean, I don't know what to say. I'm very disappointed in the way this is all coming out, and it seems like there's more and more efforts to conceal and hide instead of coming out and say, oh, we messed up. We should maybe get down to the bottom of it and prevent other counties from getting abused. Because after Gigabeam raped us, they went on to other counties and they couldn't perform the other assaults until they beat us. Y'all didn't do anything to stop it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the only speaker, so.
Make a motion, come out of closed session.
Second.
Public hearing.
Public hearing. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
At this point, we can discuss this, I believe. It's on the agenda. And so I would like to not necessarily respond to Mr. Badoon. We're not allowed to do that, by the way, sir. The efforts that are going on in partnership with US Sailor, there was a request for proposal. US Sailor was the only company that came to us that had an interest in putting towers up. There are three things that we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to accomplish 911 stabilization so we can put 911 communications on the towers. We're also trying to improve cellular service in the west end of the county, and there's also going to be technology attached to those towers that will allow for wireless communication. We likely have not described it well enough. If you would have come to the last meeting that we had, the Broadband Authority, I think you would have gotten some clarity on some of these issues that you have questions with. And I think that's all I have if y'all want to add to it.
No, I'll just reiterate as I did in the other board meeting that I feel like this is we're moving in the right direction. We've tried to we've beat this thing to death, and I think this is a win for the county. I've not seen anything anybody's trying to hide or mislead. We've heard people come in here for the last 3 years and say, we've got a communications issue, a 911 issue. We need to do something. We're not listening. We're not here. And now we are. And so I feel like we're moving in the right direction. We're all at the mercy of the information provided to us. And I trust the folks so far that have provided that information.
On my part, I'd just like to say, been on the 911 commission for several years now. Each county, we were going with a project prior to this that was going to be far exceeding any of the localities' ability to pay the cost. And so it ended up each locality trying to solve their own riddle on how we would establish communications and try to improve that for our EMS, fire departments, and the sheriff's office, and also the school system needs communications with their buses and things. And so after seeing the cost that was coming back from some of the companies that had been spoken to, each locality decided, go on their own way and try to solve the riddle. I think this is the most progressive and the best route for our locality in able to solve this riddle. Plus, I think with one stone, possibly can kill 2 or 3 birds at one time, in that we're looking where we've got input into entire locations to where they benefit our 911 system, besides benefiting cellular communication and also trying to solve the broadband riddle for people who are living in the western end of the county who are not afforded that capability. So I think that we've looked at our best. This turns out to be our best alternative, I feel. So.
And along those lines, the last meeting, that we just had, one of our main concerns was risk to the county. Who would be assuming pretty much all the risk, and it is US Cellular. We've been told that US Cellular assumes pretty much all the risk of this project. Financial, you want to help me out with all these specific lists of things that he had?
Maintenance,
It's all on
Insurance.
US Cellular.
That's what I used to do for a living.
US Cellular,
Cellular communications, the towers and all that good stuff.
great. So you're familiar with
I'm
it.
very familiar.
So that was our main concern, and
And
that's,
I can.
Sir, I'm sorry, your time's up.
No, actually, it isn't.
It is. That's the whole decorum thing that we talked about in the beginning.
thought you weren't allowed to address me. though. You're just making.
Yeah, that was our main concern, and we tried to make sure with Mr. Mike Lockaby and Tom Revels that our main concern was that the county was not assuming an undue amount of risk for this, and so we've been assured of that.
For me personally, the biggest part of this for me was the 911 portion, because I see the challenges and the issues that all of our sheriff's office, I hear every time I go to the store, or I was at the Maple Festival this weekend. And on the western end, the radio communications are terrible. That's my main concern. The cellular deal portion of it and the internet, that'll be really good for those folks, because it's easy for us to sit at our house with internet and cell phone service. But up there's nothing unless you want to get Starlink. So I hope this is step one of the county realigning our priorities and putting first things first.
Okay, does this require further action from us, or is the resolution
Can I
from
just
last?
point out one more thing? We're not going in on a 20-year debt as has been spoken about out in the community. And if you was there last meeting, we addressed that. So we're looking at 11,
8 to 11.
yeah, 8 to 11. 11 would probably be the max if we did. And so the debt would be paid off rather rapidly with very low interest. And we had that money set aside, and there will be no tax increase related to this project, which is probably the number one thing that people should be proud of. So I have to share.
Does this require any further action?
Yeah, the board supervisor needs to approve and appropriate the budget amendment as laid out in the public advertisement. Okay, so that would be, what is that?
One more thing, Mr. Boyd, is this something from the audit that we needed to do because of this?
This
We
Yes,
do
sir.
it this time?
Yes, sir. The
It would be
DHCD audit,
That's right. It's the audit.
yes. $1,950,000.
Would be appropriated to the,
Approved and appropriated.
Make the motion.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Does this require a roll call vote? Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Ash?
Aye.
Supervisor Burnett?
Aye.
Supervisor Thomas?
Aye.
I'm also aye. Okay, next thing on the agenda is, Mr. Scott Wickham, to get the audit presentation.
Did we need a motion to come out? Or we already did that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I did good.
All right, thank you all for having me. See some new faces up here, so I'll try to give as much detail as possible. Again, my name is Scott Wickham. I'm a partner in charge of the county's audit. You should have a handout just out in front of you. There's no changes to the PDF version that they have to work through up there, other than the date is corrected since it was postponed. Last time I was told y'all had a pretty full docket, so we moved it back. But no changes to the online version from what I have passed out here. One reason I want to give the handout is there's a lot of information in the audit, and I tend to go rather fast through a lot of information. My contact is on the front, so if you have questions as you go through it later on, feel free to reach out. So, happy to take questions from board members and staff. And the public wanted the question, they didn't go through staff and not go to. Otherwise, we're happy to answer questions. So I'll start going through the handout here. If you have questions, let me know. We issue several reports as part of the annual audit process. The first one is the independent auditor's report. That's the opinion on the numbers presented in their statements. The county has again received an unmodified opinion. It's a good, clean opinion. It's the best opinion you can get. That means the numbers presented in the report are purely accurate. So that's a good report for the county. The second major section in the report is the management discussion and analysis. A lot of the report is on an annual basis. It doesn't have a lot of comparative data. So this is one section that does have a good amount of comparative data. And it's presented by the staff here, put together. We review it and tie it out. But it's a good section to read to give you a high level picture of the comparative basis. exhibit one, and I'll show you some numbers in a second, is a statement of net position or a balance sheet. If you're from the business world, that's the full accrual accounting, similar to a business world type of accounting. So the big picture includes all of the assets, buildings, and all of the debt that you all have as well to go with those items. Exhibit 3 is the balance sheet on a modified accrual basis of accounting. So it's a much shorter term. That's going to be your cash plus short-term receivables plus short-term payables. So a little bit more short-term, but still is a balance sheet. Statement of cash flows on exhibit 9. That's mostly related to the PSA fund, a little bit of the internal service fund, but the only thing I really have to talk about that tonight, I did want to point out that the cash decreased about $50,000 in that. On exhibit 9, the top of the section, you'll see an operating activities section. And you can see where just from operations, cash declined by $45,000. So just want to point that out as a 1-year decrease to watch going forward. Otherwise, most of the rest of the presentation is related to your governmental activities. Along with that, the other opinions we report, you all have a uniform guidance report. That's the federal opinion on your federal funds. That had a clean opinion, no items noted in your federal audit for the county and school board and social services. The third report is the gas report related to controls and compliance. We did have 2 findings reported in there. Both findings are a repeat from the prior year. The first one is a material weakness related to proposed auditor entries. So as I noted, the overall books ended up purely correct and in really good shape. The cash books plus the entries you all made, we found additional items that were material to be recorded on accruals to get those things in accordance with current standards. Not an unusual finding, nothing concerning there, but we do have to report a finding. We have material proposed to this. The second one is material noncompliance for exceeding appropriations and other funds. Each fund to have any expenditures needs appropriations. I believe some of the funds had a very low appropriated balance and then over that, and some of them didn't have appropriations at all. So all the funds do need to be appropriated to have expenditures. Those are the 2 findings in the report. Otherwise, we also provide a letter of recommendations, which is maybe non-compliance that's not super significant or best practice type of items. And that's also included in this packet later on. So don't plan to go into those in detail. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those. All right, on to the numbers. So first we have the 5-year trend information. And this is only government-wide. This is exhibit 1, as I mentioned. So this is full accrual, includes everything, big picture for the county. So you have the 23 total there. You can see towards the bottom, the total net position broken into several different categories. Net position is essentially the net worth of the county. The first section is net investment in capital assets. That's going to be your infrastructure, your buildings, your vehicles, all of those items, less the debt to acquire those items that you still have on the books. So about $13.5 million of those items. You have $420,000 of restricted items, which are going to be donations and grants, other things you have on hand. And then unrestricted, about $9.8 million of available to use there. So current ratio about 3.5 for the county. So you can see that has kind of been the average, a little bit decline there over the 5 years, but pretty strong on the full accrual overall. The county does not have a large debt load, which helps that situation. So. On to the next page, again, a 5-year trend information. This is on the income statement for the general fund. So the general fund is exhibit 5, and that's on the shorter term. So your cash plus short-term receivables less short-term payables. So you can see the change in your revenues on the 5-year trend there, an increase in property taxes, but it's also a significant increase in intergovernmental revenues, mostly driven by an increase in social services, as well as your ARPA funds that you will have received needs, and CARES funds that you receive needs as well for that time period. As you can see, the revenues are outpacing expenditures. On the second page, you can see expenditures by category. About 5.6% per year increase in total expenditures. Over on the next page, you'll have a couple charts, general fund revenues. This is a helpful chart to give you a comparison of this year versus the prior year of where your funds have come from. As you can see, almost half of the county's funds come from property taxes. About a third of them come from state and federal revenues. Pretty comparable from year to year there. On the next page, you have general fund operating and debt expenditures. You can see the various functions and the percentage of expenditures there as well. About a quarter of the expenditures go to education, comparable from one year to another. You can see the various categories there as well. Review of county reserves. And so I gave you a lot of numbers and talked about your big picture in Exhibit 1. But on the fund balance, in that short-term cash plus short-term receivables plus short-term payables, where are you? Because that's really what you all use to budget. So looking at your county reserve, you can see towards the bottom of this in purple, unassigned fund balance, and then ending unassigned fund balance of percentage of operating expenditures. For 2023, you can see 18.82%, which is just above the GFOA recommended amount of 16.67%. With that recommendation, I always want to make a caveat that that's a very vague generalization recommended number. So that's assuming that if you have a capital plan, capital projects, that all those items are out of that unassigned fund balance, and you've got a proper accounting for those items. And it also doesn't take into account being a rural area, maybe you have a little bit less ability to tax than some other places. Also, places that have twice-a-year collections, you take taxes in June, so you've received half of that in June, so you would have a higher fund balance at the end of June. So a few items to take into account there, but that is the best generalization of what you should be. So, but with that, you are in pretty good shape and with fund balance there. So. And you can see that has increased a couple percentage points from 2018. County debt balances, as I mentioned, the county has a fairly low debt percentage. You can see that has come down over the last few years. No real significant issuances during that time, mostly just paying off debt. Also want to point out, this is your accounting debt. So that other long-term obligations includes net pension liability and OPEB obligations, things that are financial debt, but not items that you have an amortization schedule you're going to pay a certain amount. The state allocates an amount for those amounts based on actuaries and gives those to you to include in your financial statements. So you are required to report them, but it's not necessarily a payment that you have to pay right away. You could see increased employee percentages based on those debts, but you won't have to write a check exactly for that. Towards the bottom, you can see debt per capita for the counties in blue, well below the state average, as you should be. That state average doesn't include West Virginia, which would have a higher amount there. And you'll see the last 2 years are the same. That 2023 number is 2022. 2023 was not available at this point. So. That net pension liability, as I mentioned, the state gives you that number to report. So included in that previous page, your debt, this middle column, 6.75%, is what's reported in there for debt. It is a significant estimate, so I wanted to point that out to you and put that in a separate page. The sensitivity analysis here, essentially, we report the liability at recommended 6.75% discount rate, but if they do better on their investments than they think, you can see how that number decreases. So if they earn 7.75 instead of 6.75 on your investments at the state, it comes down significantly. And also the opposite, they don't do as well. And the last few years, they've made 0, they've made 20, and it fluctuates. So it's a big estimate, and that's why I put that in. Upcoming standards, we've gone through GASB 87 leases and GASB 96 SPIDAs in the last few years. So a lot of standards have been implemented. The next few years are a little bit slower, thank goodness. We're now up to over GASB 100. GASB 101 for compensated absences will have a small impact on the county's accounting. It does change the way sick leave is accounted a little bit for financial reporting, but it doesn't change your day-to-day operations as far as that goes. Otherwise, I don't see a significant impact to the upcoming standards that are out there. All right, and then appreciate you all having us, and I know the staff worked really hard. Normally the process goes, we'll send a request letter with an online secure portal. A lot of those files are uploaded to us. We start working through those, and then we send another list of things we want to see when we get here, and work through all those items. And so the staff did a great job of getting those to us timely and getting through all those things. So I appreciate that. Overall, the audit went really well. I think you're in pretty good shape financially. I do have a few pages of recommendations that are here that I don't plan to go through those, but I would like to see a few of these cleaned up moving forward. I know you all had a lot of changes, changing board, a lot of change in staffing as well. So some of those things take time to get fixed, but I would like to see them to be improved. So, but otherwise, in pretty good shape. No real concerns. So, are there any questions with the audit?
I got a question.
Sure.
Under conflicts of interest statement, says your interview conflict of interest, economic interest statements were not completed thoroughly. Now, that's elected and appointed, I'm assuming?
That is, anyone required to fill out those forms in January. We review them for all of the boards that are filed with Linda, for any of the EDA board, for you all as well. Want to make sure that all of them are filled out completely. Some of them can be a little bit tricky if you don't read all the way through. I think one of them says, do not fill this out, and then it says unless, or do not fill this out for 1 and 2, but then question number 3 does apply, or something like that. And so it's easy to skip that question. Just want to make sure that all of those are filled out completely. I do have a record of which ones we noted at the office. I don't know that.
I feel like I'm in a principal's office, so if I didn't get my homework in correctly, you don't have to tell me right here in front of it.
Yeah, no,
Let me know if I need to, because those things are tricky.
they are. I agree. Absolutely. And I can send Linda a list of the ones that we have to so it's correctly going forward. But put together by attorneys, and sometimes that makes it more complicated.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any more?
Are you gonna be around if something else comes up? We need to ask before we finish.
It depends. I wasn't planning on it. If you'd like me to stick around a little bit, I could do that.
That'd be good.
Maybe during the next presentation.
Just the next 2 items on the agenda, we might ask some advice.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to new business. The first is closure of funds as recommended by the auditors. Mr. Board.
I'll let the treasurer go first.
Okay.
Challenges.
Thank y'all for allowing me to speak about this. I didn't know it was gonna be presented to you all tonight until Tuesday. I know that a couple weeks ago, Nikki had sent me an email about some funds that she wanted to close, but to be honest, I haven't had time to really dig into that. So when I was in her office or something else on Tuesday, she said, by the way, just hang out on side of this is what I'm gonna present. And I have issues with it, mainly because I really don't understand everything. I've only been here 3.5 months, and I'm trying to still comprehend stuff. For instance, one of the ones on the list is the local sales tax. I'd seen that on the ledger, but I didn't know that we get a check monthly for that, and we have to distribute it out, and then we keep some to the town. This is what, I didn't know that till Tuesday. Maybe I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm trying really hard, working every day to try to learn my job,
Would it
and
be,
all that's required.
would it be good for Mr. Wickham to explain the suggestion of closure of accounts?
That's up to you all. I was able to talk to him a little bit about it, and I'm not opposed to working on them or closing them or consolidating them. I'm saying no right now. I think that I need time to really figure out what goes in and out of them. But like, you know, what's gonna happen, for instance, the prepaid fund. I balance that every day, and I use the balance that's in there to reconcile personal property and real estate tax receivable on a daily basis. If we need to change it, I just need to make sure, I need to see it, that, you know, that it's gonna still be okay. Like I said, I'm not against working with it. I just feel like, you know, I'm not comfortable closing them at this time. And I've been advised that I can say no from the TAB lawyer, the Treasurers Association lawyer, and some of my mentors have said that they feel like I can say no to this right now. Not that we won't continue working on them, but I'm not comfortable being pushed into closing them if I don't really understand that.
Well, I don't think any of us up here understand why it's the recommendation either. Do you mind addressing that, Mr. Whitman? Yeah.
Yeah, while he's
Straight
here.
from the horse's mouth.
Sure. So each of the funds listed, and I just remember, and I did see an email about which ones were listed initially, but so there's a different reason for each one of them essentially. And some of them, like for sales tax, for the past audit, one of the entries we had was emerged in the general fund to report that with your general unassigned fund balance, because the amount left was county money and not any kind of restricted local sales tax money. And so it's essentially an error that we wanted to get fixed. And talking with Sarah before, one of her solutions to that is to do a monthly transfer to get it corrected and then do a monthly transfer. And that's certainly an option. There's not necessarily, you have to close that fund, but it was recommended in an effort to get it corrected. One, that's my first goal is I have it correct. So some of the second part of it is efficiency. Some localities do have it in the general fund, and they post the revenue in the general fund, and the expense comes out of that revenue when it goes to the town. And that's pretty common. There are a few localities that do keep that fund, and each month they transfer it into the general fund. I know some of your funds, the board gets a proposal to do a transfer between funds, and that additional step may be a little more tedious for that, or maybe it's not required for that fund. I don't know the inner workings of how you all require that part of it. But that's, for that fund, that's my main goal, is to have, at the end of the year, they shouldn't have any balance in that fund, because it should be transferred to the general fund or paid to the towns. That's that fund. The water deposit fund, you can include that in your PSA fund as a liability, as a financial liability, and you shouldn't need a separate fund for that. You can have a fund for that. It's just another fund to track. And I don't know as far as the difficulty within Edmonds of doing that, but it certainly could be accounted for in the PSA fund. If you were a standalone PSA, you would only have one fund, and that would be accounted for anyway. The debt reserve, similar situation. That's an old fund that, in fact, I think the only transactions in there were errors from prior years. So
What I found about that fund, I mean, interrupt you, was that it was some type of bond requirement. And I don't know, I haven't been able to find a lot about it.
I think there wasn't a bond that's paid off.
See, I didn't know
Really, so
that.
that should go back.
So I just found that out about 4 o'clock. They actually reached out to Jonathan Sweet and asked if he remembered anything. I mean, I don't know, I can't find anything about some of this, so
Have you thought about asking me?
I have, but I honestly, I haven't had time.
I mean, I just,
You know, I mean.
I have
so-
documents in my office for this. And I'll just address kind of one of my concerns with having, like originally the email she spoke about, there are about 28 funds that get merged into the general fund. And when we say merged, you're talking about entries that you have to combine all these 28 funds for your general fund reporting. Okay, so that's a lot of entries that's kind of falling in my plate. And the transfers that we're having to do, we wouldn't have to come to the board for these transfers because the cash balances are sitting in a different fund than the general fund where they should be. So it's just creating a lot of inefficiencies on my end to get these things done.
And there's administrative efficiencies on your consulting firm,
Um,
and on our end, because then we're posting entries in. Once we merge them all in, there is a chance that either the consulting firm or our entries aren't balancing within the fund.
They don't.
And then they
And
can't.
then I have to post them,
And so it does create some
and
challenges.
it's very, very difficult to understand.
Well, if I'm understanding correctly, there's really no action this board can take. So this is informational for us to understand.
And you,
I guess,
That's probably a legal question. Wanted to point out that one of these funds, I see on the list here, the community development fund, I think you all created that fund. Yeah, the community development fund, I think you all created that fund. So I think you probably could close that fund since you all created it. Just to set money aside for community development in general, unless you have more specific, and I don't know how long there's probably a resolution when that was created. Maybe more direct, but that would go back a ways, I think, so I don't know.
You had something?
well, so that's a fund we created that we have the authority to close, but the rest of that relies on the treasurer. She'd said,
It's a fair question.
talk to your
Yeah,
attorney.
I talked to Kevin Mateo, which is a lawyer for the Treasurers Association of Virginia, and he said that there is code that the treasurer has. And the AG opinion that the treasurer controls funds and school funds. He said it'd take him a bit to search on the exact code, but if I'd like him, and I also talked to Fred Parker, who is Washington County's treasurer, he's my mentor, and Lori Gwen at Whitfield. She's the one that suggested that about the sales tax. That's what she does with theirs. That way they're able, if somebody asks a question about it, they're able to find it pretty quickly. And they can make sure that it's 100% washed.
does that mean funds cash or funds reporting funds?
That's a good question as far as the legal part of it is. I know, absolutely know that the treasurer has control of the cash
All
funds,
funds.
the cash funds,
And I
yes.
understand that clearly.
But as far as accounting funds or cash funds, that would be a good question. But as far as my point, that some of this is to correct ongoing issues and to make things more efficient.
Efficiency.
I really want both sides to be on board with it, and if that takes time, I don't know, but however, I'm gonna be happy with it and get these things done in a productive manner and all that.
I guess my main concern is you're coming in June. I can't book the entries right now because they are all out of balance and trying to get the auditor entries from 23 in and done, and then have these same issues ongoing into 24 is concerning to me.
Sure.
And I personally,
If we close the funds, though, isn't gonna make it harder to figure out where we're out of bounds.
know it would make it much easier for me.
Because it's gonna be a warm fund, but
I've been working on getting us balanced in cash. I'm about there. So one of these things can come off, but I certainly don't want more recommendations that are in my queue to still be ongoing.
I don't disagree with that, I just don't think that we can do it right this second, I don't feel comfortable being pushed into things like that, I'm not.
I don't understand the push, but
Can I ask a question? So how much time do you need?
I don't know, there's 20, I think there's 26, 28
28 funds
on
that,
that
How
list,
much-
and some of them are like, don't really necessarily all pertain to that.
How much time would you need to get that cleared before June? Like a week, if we close it out, or are you talking about like?
no, and actually, when I spoke to Sarah about this, I said I only put a few on here as to not overwhelm the situation. Trying to be cognizant that she's new, and it may take a little time because there are links in Edmonds that are gonna have to take place. As far as merging the funds, we can do journal entries and get it into the general fund easily, in my mind.
Typically, how many funds does a county have? One of our size?
Yeah, your size, not that many.
Well,
And in fact, you know, a number is hard to put on it. But there was a Gatsby, and I can't remember which number now, but that's the reason they're merged into the general fund. If they're not required to be separate, they're reported in the general fund for your financial So, and we merged, how many did you say it was? It was a bunch of them.
28.
Well, but that's total. We merged a bunch of those into the general fund. We do.
No,
report-
that's not our total funds.
Oh, that's not total funds. That's the
No.
ones that are merged.
We merged 28.
Yeah.
There's 3 that merged into the PSA,
Yeah.
and there was 28 that merged into the general.
So that is an unusual amount to merge in, for sure.
So all the entries that are being made by the consultants and the auditors are all out of balance by fund, which is what creates a lot of the.
And some of this goes back, you're not just correcting this past year. Some of the entries
Years.
go back
Right.
where they
Like
just not
5 or
been
6
posted.
years.
So just trying to get the system caught up.
So I'm new here, as is Mary, and I don't know if she's as confused as I am, but I'm a little bit confused. But it sounds to me like in the past, we're trying to catch up from a mess that's been made. And you've done the audit in the past, right?
Correct.
So has this been a recommendation in the past years and just did not get done?
I didn't go back and look how far it's been. I know it was in there prior year.
For the one account,
So,
or for there was 2 on this time.
so was it just ignored then?
So,
And we just said, we'll just not worry about it?
You all have not posted the audit entries, the consulting entries to your records going back probably since is it that would take more than that?
Well,
It's a long time that it's.
I guess it's required to have an audit, we just don't listen to auditors.
You just haven't gone that step of correcting your books. So the consultants you all pay come in and help get them back.
Merge them all together.
You realize we're paying consultants because of our inefficiency.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I'm
It's not
saying.
just an audit we're taking, we have to put up dollars because
I can see Sarah's point too on this, but is there any way we can work towards a resolution of making things more efficient as quickly as possible before this next audit? That's what would like to do.
And I'd like to know what causes not to balance either, because like Michelle, the finance director from the school was up yesterday, and we balanced with her within minutes, so I don't know what causes the difference, and I don't know.
Well,
I
like I
mean,
said,
I'm not gonna lie and say I do know,
I'm-
you know, I really.
I'm new here, but just from what I'm seeing, you can't correct all these issues overnight, and there's been some major issues in the past, the way it looks to me.
Well, the school is one account, so if they balance within pennies, and we're talking about multiple accounts.
No, well, the school has school fund service too, but it's in the worst checking, it doesn't have its own checking.
But-
So their funds.
So you oversee that as well? My thoughts are,
Last 3. Extra food service and school.
I think the school reconciles.
okay, so I guess my concern is a lot like Supervisor Cornett. For years, we've had all these various funds. Now we have a competent professional to come in that we've hired. So and one of the pushes that we've been, I think all of us have been, is for them to be more efficient and more lean with everything so we can get our budget where it needs to be. And if your mentor can help you to understand these things, that would be great. But we don't have a whole lot of time to work with, and it's costing us tax dollars. This is an expensive education, and I think the quicker you could figure it out and get comfortable, the more money it's gonna save the county.
Well, just like the sales tax one, that is on his audit this time, you know, but he said he's fine with it being a large account, and that way it wouldn't really change a lot of what we're used to doing. You know, it would just put them out monthly.
The details of it
I mean,
what
Each one
what
is
you,
different.
it's what you've got to work out, but if we have a consultant make recommendations to us, I think we need to follow our consultants that we have paid. I don't know the process for getting it done, but we do need to make this more efficient and more effective. And I know you're new on the job, but we can't use that forever. I mean, we've
I
got
won't be budged. I'm just saying I was elected to do
But-
what's best for the county, and I'm not saying that this is not best.
I know, but
If I'm not comfortable with it, I don't wanna make that decision.
But if our auditors recommended the merging of them, there's really no reason to fight that. You've got
On 2
to,
accounts though. he recommended the water ones we can,
Can we close the two that he recommended?
that's up to y'all, I guess. The, Fairview Water Debt Reserve is fine. The, water deposit fund, it's in a LGIP account. So I don't know how that works.
Well, at least it's working for the county.
It can still remain in the LGIP account as an LGIP account in the 501 fund.
I don't know. I'll look at it and I'll do the best I can. That's all I could say.
So there's no action for us, or I'm sorry, did you?
I was just gonna ask, do we or does the county need to help facilitate some kind of meeting for Sarah so that we can kind of work out the details on this and maybe come to a agreement on everything? Review or maybe just to do that, because it sounds like that's her main thing. She's just not comfortable doing it right now without understanding the totality of it.
I guess my viewpoint has been like this for as far back as I can look to like 2015. It's as far back as I can do something. I'm not saying what was done in the past was right,
Right,
and I know it's made a mess. I'm not saying what our funds look like is right either. I'm just saying that,
you want to understand it.
yes.
Well, what I'm hearing is what was done in the past was a mess, and what we're trying
Not
to do in
from all
the
of
future is
us, though.
clean it up.
No, we're not saying that. No, we're
Well,
saying
but
that.
even if it was, it wouldn't be your fault, because you weren't there. But I'm just saying, we're trying to be as efficient as we can, and we just, there's gonna be some give and take, and, I think it just, I don't know what, I hope it's a consensus of us that we follow the recommendations of the auditor, and it doesn't appear we've done that in the past, so I hope you'll consider that. If we need a mediator, we can, try to figure that out, but, I don't know what else we can do. I mean,
Well, I think the first thing is, the funds that we have control over, if we have the ability to close those, then we'll close them. And if it's an audit recommendation, we'll go. If there's funds that we don't have control over and you have the authority not to close those, then, we'll continue to try to help guide you along the way the best that we can.
I guess what needs to be done is, for instance, that water reserve fund that was put in for the bond that's paid off. I mean, I guess we need to make sure the board doesn't need to say it's okay not to have that in a separate fund anymore. I don't know how old it is.
I think that's what's in there.
And
Go ahead, Mr. Mark.
Could there be things that we have control over, could there be a cleanup list? And if we need to take action on it, we'll do it.
or can we just say tonight that we're gonna,
That's what's in the
This
agenda.
is
That's
step
what the
one.
agenda. This is step one.
Right, step one of the 28.
Oh, step one out of the 28, we're trying to take care of those.
so we can do that, and then I guess if you wanna hash it out and, whatever the attorney said and get the codes, and if that's a hill you're willing to climb, I think it's a bad idea. We just need to be more efficient.
Suggest a motion.
Yeah, it's just a motion to, at this point. For the fund closures of which ones? You want us,
Water and the
But
you want change? Or do you want-
personally, I would do them all, but I mean, if you're
Well,
wanting to pick and choose the community
I don't
development
think you
fund.
have the authority to do
Well, I'll tell you what we'll
I'm
do.
not the authority, the board.
Well,
is the
it. I mean, I'm not
Mr.
thinking
Chair,
that
it's
they, I don't
okay.
think they.
How about we do them all, and then whatever's not in our authority, you point it out, and we'll let you get a better understanding of those.
I think that's reasonable.
Is that in form of a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we follow the auditor's recommendation of closure of these accounts, with the caveat that if there's something there that we don't have authority, or it's presented that we don't have authority, we reconsider those specific items individually.
The motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Next item on the agenda is budget amendments for the Commonwealth Attorney.
Well, stand by 1 second. Okay, the Commonwealth's attorney, sent an email to, Nikki, and just, I'll read it real quick. It says, I'm asking that the county provide a one-time $500 bonus to myself and to my staff members of the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. As I have discussed with you before, my office's budget is supplemented by revenue generated from contractual services that we provide to the city of Galax. Those unspent funds that were provided for me in FY24 would be used as a source to fund my request. Therefore, the funds used for this request will come from revenues that would otherwise be unspent by my office. We also have unspent monies on several other lines from a budget that could possibly be used if necessary, i.e. part-time employees. The staff members that will receive this one-time bonus will be myself, Evan, how do you say his last name? Hank, Debbie Sifford, and Sarah Hall. Anyone have any discussions or concerns about this request, please let me know and I'll be happy to discuss. And, Brandon here? You see Brandon here? So Brandon's not here. I told him we would put it in discussion for the board. So I guess it's your decision.
Okay.
So let me follow. I guess when I looked at this, there's an ordinance that the county has signed since 2013. And it allows the county employees to, the board's authorized county employees to receive bonuses, but it is a board's decision. And it specifically talks about county employees. However, we have a MOU with the constitutional officers that they would be fall under our personnel policies or our ordinances, and so in my estimation, if there was a bonus to be approved, that would be a board decision.
Okay, I got several, I guess. And you have to help me out here. Because in our budget discussion, we discussed that those are shared services with Galax. That's the contract I'm assuming he's referring to?
No.
No, it's a different?
We have two separate.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
Help me out.
We may have, so we have two separate, we have a shared services contract, which portion of theirs, a portion of the services that we provide are shared by the city of Galax.
It's not really a contract, that would state.
State code, I'm sorry.
According to state code,
They pay 16.8% of certain, 16.86% of certain shared services. They also have an additional contract to prosecute misdemeanors, and in that work that happened in the Grayson portion of Galax, and I think the total contract is $6,000. Is that correct?
No, that's for the town of Independence.
Or was
It's 44.
44,000? I'm sorry. Town Independence is 4,000.
No, 40,500.
40,500 in that portion. So he has separate contracts with different cities.
To prosecute misdemeanors.
Yes.
But I think that the Commonwealth Attorney prosecutes for the whole city, not just the Grayson side.
He does.
They do have a contract
They
to
do.
do the.
Yeah.
Whole city,
Even the Carroll side?
the Carroll side.
Okay.
They used to actually pay their city attorney to prosecute those cases. So they found it was cheaper to contract with the
A
Commonwealth.
contract with the common attorney.
And if I'm not, I hope I'm not speaking wrong, but I think they always contract the same day or something, or another
They did,
law firm
yeah.
You're right. You're right.
before Grayson County
Agreed.
got the contract.
Hold on. Kind of a more than 30,000 foot view, the constitutional laws, I take issue with, I'm not saying I'm opposed to bonuses. But I don't feel like each constitutional office should be able to set what the bonus is, and because you're creating inequities between the treasurer's office, commissioner of revenue, so I'm not saying I'm opposed to bonuses, and I certainly want people to feel like they're appreciated at work. The other thing I want to take issue with is I don't think any of the constitutional officers should be able to get a bonus themselves. If it's something that you want to provide, I just think we have to put some guardrails around this and make it equitable for everybody if there's going to be a bonus structure.
So this is money in general fund,
Yes.
contract. So there again, we've asked you folks, the staff, to trim things down in this, we're in a crunch. I have issue with the request, period. It's I know we nickel and dime, but if we keep looking at this 2,500 here and 500 here and 1,000, these nickel and dimes is adding up. And the other thing is the Commonwealth Attorney he didn't even come to give the explanations. I would like to have heard from him what his justification is. So I'm gonna be a no when we get to that point.
I will say that historically in the past, it has been provided.
Has it been provided because there was different accounts like we're talking about closing here where we had all these extra accounts?
Just that me personally, I was not, I felt like it wasn't in my purview to just do it and then write it to Steve. And then we found the ordinance where, county bonuses for county employees had to be approved by the
Saying in the past that
Just going through.
they said it's only bonus
It's just gone through.
and the board didn't approve? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly, because I know, I mean, I was here before you guys were, but you guys were too. And I hashed this scenario over in my head, like, why did we not hear about this before? Because if we would have asked, they said it would have got talked away, like it was in their budget, it's Gaylord's contract money, it doesn't affect you. Evidently it does. I'm just ad-libbing here. So it goes back to trust, and I'm just glad we're headed in the right direction. I trust the judgment here, but this has been done in the past and it shouldn't have been, is the point.
Well, I don't know whether it shouldn't have been done, but it wasn't approved. And that's kind of where I am. I want employees to be recognized and appreciated. Is it possible before we approve any bonus structures that they all mirror each other
Yeah.
and that we're aware of it in advance?
Of course, he had a request in December or November of last year for a bonus from a constitutional office as well. And my answer was, I didn't think it was appropriate based on what I understood unless the board approved, and it didn't get to the board at that time. And so we're trying to be consistent in our process with it. My thought is always try to be as consistent in all these as we can. And so when this one came up, same type of process, I thought if the board wants to do this, it's in the board's purview. We don't have a system of performance. Normally, I came from a system of performance, so people could be awarded based on performance, not necessarily because they were in a specific position. Where I think it is a slippery slope in contracts. And so you can make the argument that Public Works, if they had a contract with the town of Independence to pick up trash, if they had excess funds in that contract, would they be allowed to give their employees a bonus? And my answer would be no. And so I think that if you want to be consistent to this, that's probably the thought you'd have. And if we want to set up a system where people were rewarded based on performance, then that's a whole different discussion and a longer process.
I can't speak for the whole board. I can speak for myself, but given each individual constitutional office the leeway to give out bonuses as they see fit is inequitable. And I would like, if the board has to approve bonuses, then it needs to be the same structure for everybody, in my opinion.
And I agree with that, and I think if there's a policy that we can put in place so we can be consistent. I work for a government typical agency, and when they do that, they give it out across the board, whether it's, it's typically I wouldn't want to base it on someone's pay because that's going to not be equitable. But if you said, okay, this year the county done great. These people worked really hard. We're very efficient. We cut things down. We did yada, yada, yada. Think taxpayers would be pleased with our work. Then everybody's going to get a $50. I'm using that as an example here, $550, whatever. I don't see us in that environment currently. I know that I'm not saying employees are not doing great. I'm just saying we're trying to trim this thing down and get something operable where we can address some major issues that we have not addressed that we need to address. I think a flat bonus
it's-
policy would be,
It's difficult for us to be having active conversations about cutting non-essential budget items, and then we're talking about bonuses that are just given out without approval. And as little as it may be, Supervisor Anderson's, they,
Keep going. I just would like to talk.
pennies do add up.
right,
There is a code section, a state code section, that the bonuses have to be presented in the budget, correct? As a bonus. I'm pretty sure,
Absolutely.
okay, I'm pretty sure there's a code section that addresses bonuses.
Yeah.
And that they have to be budgeted for.
Well, any expense has to be budgeted for,
No,
but it could,
But I think it has to be
Maybe not
called out,
okay.
because that's why I have other items for bonus.
First and foremost, we're all here to represent the people, and I don't think the people of Grayson County want us giving out bonuses whenever we're talking about having to do increases in other areas. That's my first point. And the second point is the constitutional offices. It's not equitable like we talked about. You count in all the constitutional officers and all their employees, you're talking about thousands of dollars if we give them all $500. And that's exactly what they're gonna want if we approve this. And I'm sure these folks are doing a good job and they may deserve the bonus, but with our economic times right now, we just can't do it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I just kind of echo what you're saying, and I think this, at this point in the budget, discussions, we're still not got a balanced budget yet. I don't know how we could, ethically think about doing that.
And the other thing I want to say is, I think this discourages, making a true budget. I mean, if we do this and everybody's gonna think, well, if I put an extra few $1,000s in my budget at the end of the year, they think that's their money, but it's the people's money. And they think just because it's my budget, I'm gonna just give it to myself. That's not right.
that's a bad precedent. I agree.
All right, I think we're all on the same page.
Yes.
Do you need a promotion, or is this direct staff to find an equitable solution across the
I
board?
just say we make a motion to decline the request. And I'll make a motion that we decline the request of the Cummins Attorney's Office for bonuses.
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
We pretty much discussed it.
Well, what we're doing is we're making a motion to stop one constitutional office from giving bonuses. And I think we need to do it across the board.
Want another
Would
motion?
you be willing to amend your motion to say that we suspend all bonuses until there's an equitable structure put in place?
I think you already have an ordinance in place that would prevent that.
That's what I was hearing, so.
Because it has to come to the board
It has
in
to come
order
to the
for
board.
it to.
Okay, so you leave that motion.
Yeah, we'll leave that. Well, since we're in discussion, I think if you go ahead and research that, and then we'll get some kind of uniform across the board plan. If there's ever a time when we can give a bonus, and I'm not trying to discourage our employees, they do a great job, but, it's just not, I don't see it right now.
I'm okay with making a moratorium on bonuses myself. That's up to you guys.
Then if you're gonna do that, I would just rescind the ordinance or leave the ordinance and put what,
It's a resolution.
it's an ordinance. It's an ordinance. It's an ordinance. It's 2013 ordinance.
Can we,
Or we can, obviously if one comes, we will present to the board just like we did this one.
I think we do it that way.
I will provide guidance to either directors or constitutional officers where I think the board is currently at on this. And if they still wish to argue, I think if they have a legitimate argument, maybe the board wants to hear a legitimate argument.
I would.
okay, there's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Next item on the agenda is, everybody good? Do you need a break?
You say aye?
Aye.
Yeah.
Everybody good to keep going? All right, we have, two resolutions. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Does anybody want Hear the resolution, you got them to read. Can we waive the reading of the resolution? Consensus on that? Okay, the first resolution is in support of Virginia Smart Scale Project submission. Did I mess up?
No, you're good, you're good. I was just way behind.
Can we waive the reading of the resolution?
Yes. Ms. Black, you have anything on this? No?
I was here to read.
Okay.
Okay, at this point, I will entertain a motion to adopt a resolution in support of Virginia Smart Scale Project submission.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Ash? Aye. Mr. Cannett?
Aye.
Ms. Thomas?
Aye.
I'm also aye. The next resolution is opposing a requested rate increase by the Appalachian Power Company. We can waive the reading of that. I would entertain a motion to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'll just say that I asked for this resolution as some other counties have been doing it in the area. And since then, I think AEP's proposed about $10 a month for average increase on top of what they already have. So just throw that out there. Hopefully this can make a positive impact somehow.
As we know, these types of resolutions really have no teeth, but we join with these other counties that have done this to hopefully send a message to AEP, this stuff's getting out of hand. And not just them, but the commission that approves their rate increases. And hopefully the elected officials up the chain will hear this at some point. And I think several of them signed on, this past week. I saw a letter from our delegates and senators from across Southwest Virginia. They had signed on to this, so
Do you
maybe
know
somebody
how
will
many
listen.
there have been? Do you know how many there have been so far?
Counties, I'm not sure, but I know it's probably at least 3 or 4, but I think there's probably more than that.
Any more discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Ash?
Aye.
Mr. Cannett?
Aye.
Ms. Thomason?
Aye.
And I'm also aye. Okay, County Administrator's report.
Okay. Real quick, I sent you an email, the VDOT signs on Route 703 Hardin Road, Route 626 on Old Bailey Road have been installed. So I know you asked several questions about that. We are receiving a lot of complaints about trash on the main roads, 94, 21, 58. Last year, we worked with the VDOT, and they funded trash pickup and the cutting of the grass twice last year. They've informed me they do not have the money to do that this year. So we started working with with Vicky Shop Day Report. We're going to get some of those folks who owe us community service out. Sheriff's Office has a contract with VDOT that they will pay the deputies as people are picking trash up alongside the roads. So that should start here next week or two. And you know, as you all know, most of you probably didn't listen to our budget discussion. We are continuing to absorb costs to our Public Works Department. We currently are we currently are short about $280,000 a year for Public Works. And we're trying to find areas to improve. We see things like in Troutdale 2 days ago, we had a business or an individual put out tires along the road, which caused us to have to pick up tires for large item pickup, and is an expense to the county. And so we're trying to just deal with some of these issues as they pop up. You know, I will say that I still think our Public Works Department does a great job. I've looked throughout other counties, Smith, Wythe, Russell, none of them have home. You can't get service at your home. They won't pick up items at your home. You have to take to a certain location. So they have either 10 to 14 locations in the different parts of their county where you have to take your trash. I think it's a great service for our citizens. Right now it's $18 a month, and then in my opinion, that's and you get large item pickup, that's a pretty good deal. The board is struggling. They have to decide how they're going to deal with some of the costs of trash. Trucks are expensive. Maintenance is expensive. Everything's expensive. But even if you look at Carroll County, right now they have a private service. They're $19 a month, and that is they don't have large item pickup. And Carroll's very close to the landfill, so they don't have to, Grayson's a pretty big county. And
Did you say they do not have large item pickup and they're $19? Okay.
and that's 196 gallon card that they provide. If you want a second card, it's another $19 a month. So we're very competitive. We're more than competitive right now, I'd say, with our trash, and it's one of the items we're going to have to address for our next budget season, in my opinion. Just something for us to think about. The grand opening of the New River Hill Farm Trail is tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
And I hiked that trail already. I don't know if I'm supposed to. I jumped the fence, hiked that trail, and it's fantastic. And it's marked well. It's a beautiful trail. And so don't tell a lot of people about it because that's where I want to go by myself. But I found it to be fantastic. So I'm really excited about that.
What was the first item you mentioned on your list? What was the first thing you mentioned?
The VDOT signs.
Right. Is there any discussion on that? I just want, because I traveled out through there and going west, there's the sign. But if you got off of 81 coming from there, and there is no sign.
Oh, okay.
And that would probably be more beneficial than the one going west, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I was hoping that sign would read a little more restrictive.
It's not very restrictive.
And there may be a law or rule why it can't say prohibited instead of not recommended.
Probably.
I don't know, but if you don't mind finding that out for us.
Of course, absolutely, yeah, of course. Legends of Grayson was this past weekend. If anybody got to attend, I was there Friday night and Saturday. And we had the Maple Festival in White Top. We had that on Saturday all day. I was there, Tom, Lisa, Ralph, James, a lot of people were up there volunteering. We had, did you make it for Sunday? Sunday, okay. So we had Saturday and Sunday. That's obviously their biggest fundraiser of the year. And we a lot of pancakes and a lot of syrup and just a good day in White Top. And so it was fun. Lastly, there's Stop Child Abuse Month for DSS this month. And so you'll see people wearing these blue pins. And it's a big month for them. I think that's it.
Can you check to see if there's any speakers?
He can jump fences.
Oh, well, apparently.
Okay. We've got one speaker, Mr. Benoon.
First, I'd like to say thank you guys. Thank you guys for the improvements that have been made. There has been a lot of improvements, and I know I come up here and beat you guys up, and I'm sorry, that's just been my role for the last, 4 years. Y'all are keeping extremely precise minutes, the documentation, the packets. I mean, a few years ago, the minutes were non-existent or missing and, whatever it was. But now that's completely fixed. And the courthouse looks a lot better. Things are moving, and I'm very excited about that. And, like I said, I've been coming up here for so long. As a matter of fact, longer than anybody sitting on this board has been seated on this position. So I get kind of offended when I get told, if I didn't come and I didn't see things. I get 3 minutes to talk to you guys, and I get what I get to see. And and y'all and I don't get to see very much of what's going on in the internal. I only get to see what's presented to the public. So I get 3 minutes to talk to you guys, and that's about it. So, but the 911, I want to make it clear, the 911 system is not new, and that's why I get so passionate about this. It's because the 911 system was broken before the Giga Beam project started. That's why I'm so angry about it. And the EMS shortage was here before the Gigabeam project started. And now we had to spend all that money and then all this stuff on emergency. That's why I'm upset about it. But, I mean, I really hope y'all get it. I do see the improvements. I do see much better leadership. I do see, I see people accounting for funds and everything's getting a lot more organized and that looks, going forward, that looks great. But, there's still unresolved issues, with all of this stuff. And I see it from a macro level where probably that y'all don't see and haven't even looked and investigated. I mean, more information is gonna come out how bad Facebook is. And anybody that has anything to do with that company and has contracted with that company is that's gonna be yet to be given to the average public and believable to the average public, but I understand it intimately. That's about all I have to say. I just want to explain why I get so passionate about that and that, I have been around. I haven't come to every meeting, no, but I have been paying attention and, I'm going to continue to do it. Hopefully I don't have to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we go ahead and handle the new business, before we go into closed session? We cannot. Okay. Nobody wants board supervisor time. So we're good on that. Okay, well, at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session. To go into closed session to discuss a personnel matter pursuant State Statute 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia involving district-specific appointments.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're in closed session. We're gonna take